on my way over to Covington, Georgia today for an appointment. So thought I'd take you guys along for a little bit of the ride. I've got my new Sena Prism camera on the helmet, and I've been working with it a little bit, trying to tune it and keep it from overdriving so bad. I actually moved the microphone over to my ear, my right ear, over the speaker for the intercom system. So my wife is not with me today, but when she is, and my son's riding and daughter's riding too, we have 4 intercoms in our helmets. We can all hear each other, and you guys will be able to hear us too. So that should be pretty entertaining. Now the other thing that I've discovered is if I'm doing more than 45 or 50 miles per hour, the background noise is so great that it pretty much interferes with any clean audio. So I'm going to have to stick to, blogging while riding, I guess, on 45 mile per hour, 50 mile per hour roads. I won't be able to talk to you on highways so much due to the excess noise. But I suppose you guys can hear me okay. Hopefully it's a little better than it was last time. It took a little bit of finessing to get this thing to go. Now, I wanted to go ahead and answer a question that I had recently about the motorcycles, and that was, candidly, how much time have you spent walking? This really comes back down to the reliability question of the Ural motorcycles. I know there's a lot of bad press out there, and maybe if I'd got a bad one, I'd have a different opinion. I don't know. Because I kind of expected what I got with this bike. I've said this before, and I hate to just keep saying it over and over, but they're an older type technology. The one I'm on right here is a 2008, and if you don't maintenance this bike regularly and pretty much religiously, you are going to have problems. In addition to that, they are just an older technology. You have to really watch out and pay attention. Now, what I thought I would address a little bit on both rigs today about the reliability is some of the problems that we have had with them and some of the issues that I've noticed while going. I'll start with this one, the 2008 Tourist. I bought it with about 10,000 kilometers on it. It was in fantastic condition, had no serious issues or anything. And because I knew what I was expecting and had done my reading, the first thing that I did was went over it, oiled, greased everything, changed the oils, checked everything, checked all the bolts, and pretty much I do that, all the bolt checking and checking all the points, sometime around 2,500 kilometers. I still do the 2,500 kilometer checks on them. But I changed the oil at 5,000 kilometer intervals on them because I put the spin-on filter kit on the front of them. And I verified this with the manufacturer. They said it's okay to extend the service interval for oil changes on the engine from 2,500 to 5,000 kilometers with the spin-on filter kit, just like the newer bikes. So I do that, change it every 5,000 kilometers in the engine. And I don't try to cheat. The life of this rig, the life of the engine, everything is how clean the oil is that's running through it, and how good the oil is that's running through it, as well as the friction points on here that you need to put a dab of grease on. Now, I tend to use a product called T9, Bow Shield T9. I use that because I trust it. I use it in the shop. I've used it for years on my CNC machinery. It tends to leave a film clean, stick good, and it resists water okay. But that's not to say that that's the only product out there that'll do the job. You can use any good product to keep all of the pivot points lubed that are in it. Now, I did have to replace the drive shaft bearing as it goes into the final drive on the Tourist because it failed. It had no greasable U-joint in it. You couldn't put grease in it. So that's just a matter of time before it fails. It's going to happen. And fortunately, I was anticipating it. I was looking at it. I looked over the rig carefully when I spotted it. And I took care of it before it left me walking somewhere. Now, if you're the kind of person that you don't want to work on the rig, and again, I'm talking about pre-2014, the carbureted rigs. I can't speak for the EFI rigs. I have ridden a few, but I don't have any long-term experience with them. But these pre-2014 rigs, if you're the kind of person that's going to jump on one and ride it, and you don't check the bolts, you don't check the U-joints, you don't eyeball everything on it every 2,500 kilometers, it's probably going to leave you walking. Sorry, it just is. It's your responsibility to check this rig over and take care of it so it can take care of you. And that's the way I look at it. So anything that happens while I'm out riding, I hope that it's not unexpected, but it's probably going to be completely unexpected. It's not going to be because I looked at something and ignored it, or I just didn't look. And to me, that's true of any vehicle. I treat my truck, my cars, everything the same way. I want to check it over and know, especially more so on a motorcycle, your life depends on it. So I did have the universal joint fail in this one. I've had to tighten bolts. The sidecar, the bolts that hold the strut onto this rig, over to the sidecar, they tend to loosen a little bit over time. I noticed that the bolt that holds the rear axle in place, when I got it, it didn't have a lock nut or a lock washer on it. It just had a bolt with a nut, and that was working loose. So I tried to find the right size lock nut and couldn't, and I put a lock nut on it to match the front axle. And that may have just been an oversight from the previous owner, but my point is, don't just ride the thing without checking it out, making sure that it's okay. You know, check your tire pressures. I hear stories of people saying that they keep having flat tire, or had a flat tire on the sidecar tire over there. And they find out that basically the tire spun and the rim cut the valve stem off the tube. And I can't say this for everybody. I've heard that story probably half a dozen times in a couple of years, and I'm not saying this is everybody's case, but the one person that I talked to, he checked the front tire and the rear tire pretty much every couple of times he rode. He'd check the air pressure in them. But the sidecar tire, he admitted that he didn't check it very often because it wasn't that important. And even at 15 PSI, if he's not carrying anyone, what does it matter? You know, it's not carrying any weight. And I think he found out what it matters. What it matters is when the air pressure gets so low in the tire that you start braking and you don't have enough air pressure in that tire to maintain the cut, you know, that link to the rim, it allows it to spin. And it doesn't take much. We're not talking about spinning 5 inches. We're talking about spinning 1/4 of an inch. If it pulls that tube 1/4 of an inch, that's it. It's going to tear that valve stem off of it. So, yeah, I check my sidecar tire too. I keep my front at 32, the side at 30, and the rear at 40. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I'll speak up a little bit because I made it to 212 here where the speed limit's 55. So as long as nobody's behind me, I'll just kind of cruise a little slower, but I may have to pick it up. But anyway, that's kind of the situation with the tourist. If I hear it making a strange noise, that's how I found the rear universal joint. I went after it. I tried to figure out what the clickety-click was, and I found it. And so yeah, pay attention to the sound, the feel, the smell of the rig, everything that's there, and get used to it. And if something seems wrong, it probably is. You should go look for it. And I've talked to other people who have kind of the same philosophy about this that I do, and we find ourselves sharing reliability stories. Yeah, it's never left me walking, and I've taken care of it, and you know, whatever the situation may be. And you know, the rig is what it is, and I enjoy it. So I'm happy with the Tourist, and you know, I don't have much more to say about the reliability on it, other than I certainly do hope it continues, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll deal with it when it happens. That brings us to the 2010 Patrol, my wife's rig. Now, I will admit the reliability on that rig has been a little less than this one. I treat it the same way that I treat this one, but I do have to listen to her and make sure that if she starts telling me something is acting a certain way, I may need to take the rig for a ride and find out what it is. Just recently, the bolt came off of the clutch cable down by the air housing, and her clutch was getting loose. Now, the nut hadn't fallen off yet, so we tightened it back up. But if we'd continued to ignore that, it would have left us in a bad situation somewhere, because if you lose that, you can't clutch. And hers also, you know, was leaking oil when we got it. We had some issues getting that oil leak fixed. Had to replace the rear main plate. The gasket that went there had been folded over and pinched and was leaking oil. The rear main bearing, it was making noise and having issues. It had spun in the rear plate housing. But that rig had 30, I think it was 35,000. In fact, it had as many miles on it when we got it as I'm just approaching on this Tourist. And that rig had not been babied. It had had some hard riding done to it. And it took us about a month and a half to go through it. I had to use a driving wedge, basically a wedge like you would fell a tree with. I just happened to have it. I put 2 pieces of oak in there and used that to separate the sidecar frame from the bike. The problem that we had run into was the sidecar frame on the Patrol was jammed all the way into the bike as far as it would go. And I put a 2-ton scissor jack in the gap between the frame and the bike frame. Started cranking it. Now this is 2,000 pounds, or 4,000 pounds, excuse me. 2,000 pounds per ton here. I'll get it right in a minute. But a 2-ton scissor jack in there. Cranked that thing down until I heard a pop. And figured, all right, we separated it now. You know, we broke the rust free. Let's adjust this. I cranked it down, pulled it out, and the scissor jack had collapsed. So I took the driving wedge with 2 pieces of oak plank flooring, just 2 pieces of oak boards, stuck them in the space, put the wedge between them, and used a sledgehammer. And I drove on that thing till it popped free. Once we got it free, we could adjust it. But the point of that story is really that rig had not been babied or, you know, handled with any delicacy whatsoever. And it came in the door with a lot of issues that we had to sort out. The final drive input shaft also broke. I had to put a new final drive input shaft and full pinion set in it to get it going again. And to this day, I still don't know why it broke. All the shims were there. Everything looked okay, but for whatever reason, it broke. And I got that replaced. The other issue we had, it needed a clutch when we got it. We put a new clutch in it, and we ended up still needing to replace the clutch. Because the clutch that went in it, the rivets had pulled free on it, so I had to go back in and replace that clutch, and that's when I finally fixed the oil leak. It still leaves me a little concerned sometimes, but it just keeps on going. So my wife rides it, we enjoy it, and we're just not overly concerned about it leaving us walking anywhere. So if we are out on a trip, what are we going to do if we do have to start walking? Well, one, my son is at home, and we travel around the southeast quite a bit. So worst comes to worst, I could call my son and get him to throw the trailer on the truck and come get us. But for the immediate situation, because we have two rigs, we'll just take the stuff out of one tub and we can both ride in one rig to get where we need to be to come back and pick the other one up. Also, another option is to go to a mini storage. If we had to, we could take one rig and get it to a mini storage and lock it up there until I can come back and get it. There's any number of things that we can do if something were to happen, but fortunately that hasn't happened. I forgot one thing on the 2008 Tourist was the trailer plug under the seat. I had no idea that was a trailer plug. I thought it was a diagnostics port. So it's cheap, it's made of steel, and the actual wire in the harness was made of steel. And what they had done was taken the part that would normally go to the trailer that you plug into it and simply cut off the external wires and put it on the cap, put it on the plug and then put a cap over it. Over time, water had got in there and it had rusted those wires they cut, and it was shorting out. Now, it wasn't going to leave me walking, but it was shorting out the brake light, and the brake light was staying on. So I effectively had no rear brake lights because they were always on. Now, with my wife following me, that wasn't that big of a deal. I was able to talk to her, and she knew if I was stopping or where we were going to turn. But I took it apart while we were up on the Blue Ridge Parkway at the place we were staying. I went out to the driveway one day and I tore it all the way down. I had no idea what the problem was. I took the headlight out of the bucket, went through all the wiring, took the seat off, took the gas tank off, all right there in the driveway using the tools that are in the rig. And when I finally found the problem, I felt like an idiot. All this work. I thought it was a diagnostics port. I had no idea it was just a dang trailer hitch. I might have pulled that first just knowing what it was. I don't know. Anyway, you live and learn. So if you've got one of these, I think they stopped putting them in like 08 or 09 was the last year they put them in. So if you got one older than that and you find this big block plug under the seat, that's a trailer plug. The best advice I have is to just take that piece they cut the wires on, throw it away, and put the cap back on. You'll be fine. Anyway, I'm out on the highway now. Looks like somebody might be coming up behind me, so I need to speed up. And I guess I'll say goodbye for now. Hope you enjoyed it, and subscribe. I can't promise any earth-shattering great content, but it'll be what it is. And every now and then you might just learn something, or you at least get to laugh at me. So hit the subscribe button and hit the like button.